An update now to a story we've been tracking. In a major ruling Tuesday, a federal appeals court said that Texas can require the 10 commandments to be displayed in public schools.
That reverses a previous lower court ruling and follows a growing number of states that have recently pushed for similar legislation.
Joining us now is NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson. Also with us is NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris. Priscilla, we'll start with you. What did the federal appeals court say in its ruling, and what's been some of the reaction to it?
Yeah, so the families who sued here effectively said that this was the state leaders promoting their interpretation of Christianity over other faiths. But the appeals court disagreed, saying that this law, quote, authorizes no religious instruction and gives teachers no license to contradict children's religious beliefs. No child is made to recite the commandments, believe them, or affirm their divine origin. And obviously, you can imagine the groups who oppose this are not happy with this ruling. The ACLU saying in a statement, "We are extremely disappointed in today's decision. The First Amendment safeguards the separation of church and state and the freedom of families to choose how, when, and if to provide their children with religious instruction. We anticipate asking the Supreme Court to reverse this decision." So this fight clearly not over just yet.
And Misty, let's bring you in now. What exactly did the court apply when it comes to a legal standard here? Because when we think about the First Amendment, freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, petition, how did they make their case?
Right. We think about separation between church and state. And the legal precedent from the Supreme Court had been in place for a very long time, requiring a showing of a secular purpose, meaning nothing that advances or inhibits a religious practice. And so that's why we've seen a lot of these laws get struck down in the past. But that law changed in 2022. SCOTUS came out with a new ruling, changed the test. It's a lot more lenient, and it looks at history and tradition. It doesn't have those objective factors like the prior test did, and that's the argument that was advanced before this appellate court.
And Misty, the guidance from the Education Department is that neutrality toward religion, that's what the department advises. And I feel like the meaning and understanding to that is really key here, and both sides are trying to use it to their advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. The arguments are cutting both ways, and I think what we're seeing is tension being set up between those opposing arguments that could likely find its way back to the Supreme Court. And we're talking about this and other states who are trying to pass similar laws. Yeah. And that's all happening in the wake of that change in the law in 2022, a SCOTUS ruling. So there's definitely more clarity that they'll be seeking from the Supreme Court.
Interesting. It kind of acted like a domino effect.
Correct.
And to that end, Priscilla, we mentioned a growing number of states recently pushing for similar legislation around the country. Where exactly do those laws stand right now?
Yeah, so displaying the 10 Commandments in classrooms is now law in Louisiana, Texas, and Alabama. I will note that some teachers in Texas have said that they will also display posters from other faiths to sort of counterbalance some of that. But we also know that there was a judge in Arkansas who actually ruled that it was unconstitutional to display the 10 Commandments, saying that it amounted to religious coercion. Meantime, you also have bills that are still in progress making their way through the legislature in places like South Carolina, West Virginia, and Missouri.
Yeah, so just the start of this conversation here. Misty Marris, Priscilla Thompson, thank you both.